Hey everybody, I'm Fox with FoxeoGames, and this is Muramasa Rebirth for the PlayStation Vita. Heads up, I'll be using the PlayStation TV to capture footage for this review. Please note that the game was intended to be played on the small Vita screen and not on a 1920 by 1080 display, but it is of course running here at 720p. Muramasa Rebirth is essentially a remaster of the previous Wii exclusive title, Muramasa the Demon Blade, this time built for the PS Vita. I find it interesting that this game has had a really bad run when it comes to platforms. The Wii was a very popular console, but Wii players didn't generally buy games like this, so it was certainly a strange entry in the Wii's library, and one that ultimately suffered from relatively low sales despite a good initial release in Japan. Muramasa Rebirth comes along and does very little to change the title's obscure presence. Yes, it's available on another system, but this time it is once again a platform that won't reach a massive audience. The PS Vita, despite having a sizable library of great games, including many exclusives, has suffered from very low sales and a lack of support from Sony. It just seems that Muramasa can't catch a break. Now, it's impossible not to immediately notice the very unique visual style in the game, so let's start there. Like anything else made by Vanillaware, Muramasa Rebirth features some stunningly gorgeous visuals. Layered backgrounds and exquisitely detailed 2D art is a treat for the eyes, and thank goodness you can now enjoy it in glorious 60 frames per second. The design of the characters, weapons, clothing, food, buildings, enemies, and objects in the game are all artfully crafted representations of Japanese mythology, lore, and real life. Food like this tempura udon is served today in many Japanese restaurants, and it looks just like this. Granted, you would almost always get some side items with it, such as rice and pickled vegetables, but this is an authentically Japanese game, even down to the authentic Japanese fantasy elements. Fortunately, there is virtually nothing disappointing about the audio in the game. Sound effects are awesome and pack the right punch and feel. Little things like drawing and sheathing your sword, as well as special effects and attacks, are also great. But what I really want to praise is the music. It manages to be atmospheric, emotionally moving, authentically Japanese inspired, and downright amazing most of the time. There are a couple tracks which are primarily atmospheric and lack a cohesive sound to them or a cohesive melody, but some of the songs are good enough to earn a spot on your music player's playlist. Check out this one. Or how about this one? Tell me this isn't awesome stuff. Only complaint I have is that the music is a bit too loud, especially when there's voice acting to be heard. On that topic, the voice acting is not bad at all, but it's all in Japanese. If you're studying Japanese, you may understand some of it, but don't use this as a learning tool. They use some non-standard phrases and some older, more archaic language here. You wouldn't want to run around talking like some of the characters in this game, trust me. And that kinda goes for a lot of anime as well, so be careful what you use as a learning tool. Some language is not meant to be used in everyday conversation. As for the story, it's a truly mixed bag. There are some interesting aspects to it, but for the most part, it's pretty bland. The characters are not well developed, and it's hard to connect with either Momohime or Kisuke, the two protagonists. Kisuke comes off as a bit of a jerk, and Momohime spends most of the game inhabited by the soul of Jinkuro, who presents himself as a heartless warrior who murders indiscriminately for his own selfish reasons. Compared to Odin's Sphere, it's a weak story with weak characters overall, and its only saving grace is the incredibly fascinating setting and design. Sometimes when you bump into the same character in different places, they'll repeat the exact same lines as the last time you saw them. It just feels out of place. The characters can act as if you didn't even encounter them last time, as if the info they're giving you is brand new when you've heard it once or even twice before. I can understand if you talk to the same person in the same place multiple times, they may have the same thing to say, but they're appearing in different places, so you naturally expect them to have something new to say. Oh, and an interesting little aside, the female protagonist's name, Momohime, uses the kanji characters for 100 and princess, but if you didn't know how the name was written, it could be understood as meaning Peach Princess or even Thigh Princess, although the latter assumption would never normally be made. While Peach Princess makes really no sense, the other name might, given the art for her character. Like their more recent title, Odinsphere Leifthasir, which is also a remake, Muramasa Rebirth features 2D side-scrolling action combat with RPG elements. You level up via experience, collect various items for use in and out of combat, and can even visit restaurants to order food that restores health and imparts additional spirit power. Spirit power, along with souls, are used to forge new blades. There are two types of blades, swords and long swords. Swords swing faster but do less damage, and long swords swing slower but do more damage, as you could expect. You can equip 3 at a time and switch between them seamlessly via the triangle button. In fact, switching blades is a vital strategy in combat. As you use a weapon, and especially when you block with it, the blade's meter reduces. When the meter empties completely, the blade breaks and is drastically reduced in power. You never want to use a broken blade. Your best bet is to switch between your 3 blades, especially as one gets close to breaking. Note that you can't equip different blades while in combat, so you can't just go through all of the different weapons that you have. You have to stick to the main 3 that you equipped before you entered into combat. When blades are fully powered up, switching to them will unleash a full screen attack, hitting all enemies currently in view. This can be used to your advantage, of course, especially with a screen full of many smaller, weaker enemies. You can also equip one piece of equipment, giving you a bonus like resistance to fire or additional strength or vitality. Your attacks can include combos from mashing the button, as well as various attacks in combination with the direction you press on the analog stick. Holding the attack button blocks, and holding the attack button and down will allow you to do a special powerful attack that can break enemy swords. There are also dash attacks accomplished by holding the attack button and pushing your analog stick in the desired direction, and of course, you can do upward slashes with an intuitive press of up and the attack at the same time. Both Momohime and Kisuke control the same and don't offer really any variety in the combat. If you complete one's story before the other, like I did, the combat will feel virtually identical. I understand that they included the 2 separate characters for the different stories, but why not at least vary up their combat styles? Compare this to Odinsphere, in which there are 5 characters who all play quite differently from one another. At least you'll encounter different areas and bosses in the 2 storylines. Note that most of the gameplay I captured is from Momohime's storyline. Oh, and there are multiple endings too. Back to the game's controls, my biggest complaint is the inability to use the D-pad for movement. Yes, the D-pad does work to scroll horizontally through your items, but I think this could have been done with other buttons. The shoulder buttons appear to be completely unused, so why not use those instead? I would have at least appreciated an option in the settings. The reason I say this is because the analog stick can be a bit unreliable for precise movements in this 2D environment, so I found myself constantly initiating some wrong moves, especially when I tried to do multiple dash attacks in a row. The D-pad would have alleviated so much of this frustration, and I know this because it was usable in Vanillaware's similar game that I've mentioned before, Odinsphere Leifthasir. Oh, by the way, I did a review of that game for the PS4, so definitely check it out using the link at the end of the video or the link in the description. And there is quite a lot of functionality all mapped to the X button. It's your jump button, your talk button, your item pickup button, and your prompt trigger button. Unfortunately, it's really easy to end up accidentally jumping when trying to talk to characters or mash the button through a prompt. Additionally, anytime you press X over an item to pick it up, you'll also jump. It's a bit odd. My other complaint about the gameplay is in the accuracy the game requires of you. I just don't feel like the controls and movement of the protagonist is tight enough to accurately dodge and avoid attacks from some of the encounters. I will admit that the combat can feel a bit sloppy at times, and dodging would have been better mapped to a single button, as it is in Odinsphere. Some of the boss fights are painfully aggravating. You'll be trying to dodge an attack or move out of the way, and find yourself performing some other move instead, taking the full brunt of the damage you should have dodged. One particular boss requires you to dodge an attack by hiding behind an obstruction. The boss repeated this move against me over and over and over again. Every time I managed to make my way back to the boss, it would repeat the same attack, requiring me to run away and hide again, having not even landed a single hit. He literally did this 6 times in a row. Very frustrating. Enemies will also frequently move off screen, but still be able to shoot ranged attacks at you, and that's not cool. To offer some additional criticism, Muramasa feels like a step backward from the combat and control of Odinsphere, despite Odinsphere originally coming out before Muramasa did. I think reworking the controls for this remake would have gone a long way in making the game more playable. And just like Odinsphere, the game features lots of repeated areas and enemies with quite a bit of backtracking at times. You scroll the screen left and right in each area and transition from one area to the next. Each area is represented on the map by a rectangular box. Each area has a unique theme, whether it be a thick forest, a snowy mountaintop, or a village filled with multi-story buildings. I do like how there's a lot of attention to detail even in something simple. Note here that as you're running along in this empty area, she throws a glance your way. Note that after every battle, she does this hot shot little twirl of her sword before sheathing it. Oh, and check out Kisuke's slick move. Awesome. Little things like this are fun to discover, at least they are for me. I like little touches that add up to an interesting experience. For example, when you cook food, it shows more than what would normally be necessary, giving you insight into how the meal was actually cooked in real life. And when you eat the food, whether cooked yourself or at a restaurant, you get to see authentic plating with the food gradually disappearing as you consume it. And the game ends on a strong note with a very cool final boss fight unique from all the other encounters. Muramasa Rebirth is definitely worth your consideration if you enjoy these kinds of games. While it's a clear step down from the Odin Sphere in many ways, it's far from a bad game. The game's controls can wear on you over time, prompting you to take breaks between play sessions to alleviate the frustration. But still, Vanillaware produced another excellent title that many people would definitely enjoy if only they'd give it a chance. If you like Muramasa Rebirth, you definitely like Odin Sphere Life Thrust, which, as I've mentioned, I've reviewed here on the channel, so go ahead and click the link at the end of this video or the one in the description to check it out. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video game review. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a like. You can also subscribe to my channel, and you can check out one of my other reviews here. As I mentioned, I reviewed Odin Sphere Life Thrust for the PlayStation 4. It's also available on the PS Vita, and it's made by the same company as Muramasa Rebirth in the same style, so definitely check that one out. And if you want to check out another PS Vita game, you can watch my review of Soul Sacrifice Delta. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.